Welcome. This is David Boles, Human Meme. Today's topic, social justice. What is social justice? We know criminal justice is about punishing people for crimes against other people. We know civil justice is about crimes against property. What happens when social justice is meted out? And no, social justice has nothing to do with social media. Social justice, some may argue, is like pornography. It's hard to define, but you know it when you see it. But social justice can tend to be invisible. And so we need to work harder together to make social justice visible and imperative for one and all. Historically, in the United States of America, social justice has determined the relationship between the self and society. What do we believe? What do we value? How do we wish to influence others? And how do we make everyone's situation better for everyone? We are in this life together, socially, and we cannot survive as a society without sticking together. In that vein, social justice prefers equality over striation. Disparities of wealth between people is a prime concern because money means power, and the powerful can punish the impoverished through governance, laws, and enforcement. Social justice is not socialism. Social justice is about providing fair opportunity for advancement, protest, and living, so everyone is lifted and few are left behind. One of the main signposts for social justice is the church. Set in a community of neighbors, the mission of any church is to serve the deep needs of their members and to move beyond the drudgery of everyday life and lift all lives and the lives of others into service and volunteerism and faith beyond the theoretical. Social justice also commands the role of the individual to perform some sort of specific duty in order to advance the culture beyond just working and learning and being. But few of us are willing to sacrifice anything without reward or volunteer to help our communities without being paid. And that is a problem when it comes to creating perceived fairness and provable equanimity in every social circle. Social roles can include protesting for causes, protection of the powerless, and justice at all levels of the government, including economic security for everyone. Social justice is, like it or not, also baked in to any idea of any sort of society, as the people need to be provided for socially. And we mean by that welfare, city services, race, gender, sexuality equality. They all have considerable significance, as well as prisoner reform, immigration, taking care of children, taking care of the disabled and the aged, and public health matters, collecting taxes, providing public schooling, the regulation of commerce. These are all part of the bindings of us that we, the people, demand from a government that we support with faith, money, and blood. The relationship between people and our government is a living dyad that always needs testing and tending. There may be differences in faith and believing in function, and the successful negotiation of ideals against reality is a prime operator when it comes to defining justice in society. Here are a few examples of social justice in action in America today. Black Lives Matter. There is anger and loathing in the streets. People feel they are not being heard. No justice, no peace is a rallying cry about social justice, not criminal justice or civil justice. The Black Lives Matter protesters are demanding more than punishment and payment. They want inclusion. They want to be heard and respected. And when the regular social fabric will not support them, then they move out into the world, making the invisible visible, making the spirit of suffering known, and forcing the condition that attention must be paid. Even if that attention is seen as negative and dangerous, if they don't stand up for inclusion in a mainstream world, then who will stand up for them, let alone stand with them? Here's part of a mission statement from the Movement for Black Lives website. And as you listen to this, play along with me just a little bit. And I want you to substitute the word white every time you hear the word black. I know that sounds raw, but for now, just stick with me on this. Black humanity and dignity requires black political will and power. Despite constant exploitation and perpetual oppression, black people have bravely and brilliantly been the driving force pushing the U.S. towards the ideals it articulates but has never achieved. In recent years, we have taken to the streets, launched massive campaigns, and impacted elections, but our elected leaders have failed to address the legitimate demands of our movement. We can no longer wait. That statement is resounding, important, and perhaps more universal than we may think. Continuing. The neo-Nazi movement. Yes, the rise of the neo-Nazi, the hard right, the alt-right, the white supremacist movement, whatever we want to call it. That movement is real and sort of viable right now. And also, on a very basic level, the entire idea of social justice repersonified as, some may argue, a monster from our broken past. And yes, even today, the movement may be dismaying and radicalized. But people, the white power people, are feeling left out and left behind. And that very real fear is a powerful motivator. Now it's time to do another little switch up, just like we did before. Here's a quote from the American Nazi Party website under the subtitle White Self-Defense. And as you previously did, as you listen this time, please substitute the word black every time you hear the word white mentioned. We must have an America in which white men and women can live and work in their homes and in the streets of our cities without fear. We must have a government which is not only a guarantor of public order and safety, and which preserves the right of white citizens to keep and to bear arms, which is the ancient hallmark of a truly free people, but we must have government which maintains an eternal vigilance against the enemies, both internal and external, of a white America. Every tendency towards degeneracy and subversion, every threat to our racial integrity, every form of organized crime and vice, every element which threatens public terror or chaos must be weeded out and utterly destroyed. Now, with those substitutions I asked you to do, that mandate sort of sounds a lot like what Black Lives Matter want. And what Black Lives Matters wants sounds a lot like what concerns the neo-Nazi movement. I'm not suggesting those two social justice competitors join forces and march together in the streets, but there is a common thread, undeniable, between both stations that people, their people, are being discriminated against, delayed, dismayed, and discredited. And some may believe one side outweighs the other in historical significance. But the matter remains that the feelings and the motivations and the dangers and the threats are all still very real and viable, even if we quietly or clearly try to openly discredit what they believe is a genuine complaint. So, what do we do as a society? Do we listen or punish? Do we find a way to negotiate an inclusion for everyone, no matter what their radicalization? Or are some causes so vile and worthless that they should just be destroyed? We cannot consciously decide to do the wrong thing and ignore what is actively happening around us. And we shall never repress the right to be heard and seen, because that is just un-American. Tamping down resistance by force and ignoring rebellion is never a right idea, because, as the politician William Jennings Bryan from the great state of Nebraska said over 100 years ago,
"The truth, when crushed to the ground, shall rise again."
And that's the nut of it. That is the hard center of social justice. We all have our private demons and our public desires. And we need to talk to each other to find common ground despite our differences. And yes, that's easy to say and hard to do. But what other choice do we have but to try? Because if we don't try to repair the warp and woof of our social fabric, then we deny our troubles and we feed our fears, and we'll continue our fall and decline into the pit of nothingness, where all good ideas and democracies fail and die fallow. Now, let me give you one shining example of social justice among us that actually works. Organ donation. Yes, organ donation is a prime example of social justice. We may not consider giving away bits of ourselves to help another survive social justice, but it is really social justice in its purest form. In America, We do not allow the buying and selling of body parts. But if you have a lot of money, you can get on more than one transplant list because you're willing to fly wherever and get your donated organ. But generally speaking, in the USA, the sickest person gets the first available organ for transplantation. It's a good method. It works. Willingly giving up a part of yourself or your beloved for the benefit of someone else you do not know is the height and the purest beauty of social justice in action. We are all in this world together. We live alone and we die together. And in this process of cutting and transplantation from me to you, this giving of life, we are both then irrevocably connected by justice in a donated heart. Thank you for listening. Be a human meme.